BookTube. I'm Zina and this is Beating Around the Books. Today I'm going to do my ranking for the BookTube Prize Quarterfinals. I read Fiction Group B, and the 6 books in my group were in, I don't know in which order this is. No, it's not alphabetical. Well, I'm gonna read them in the order that they came up in the list. So it was Emma Donohue's The Pull of the Stars, Brandon Taylor's Real Life, Emily St. John Mandel's The Glass Hotel, Susanna Clarke's Piranesi, Lily King's Writers and Lovers, and Douglas Stewart's Shogi Bane. So on Monday, the results of the quarterfinals were released. I, of course, did not pre-film this because I am terrible at planning. So let's try and get into this. I feel terribly underprepared, but we'll do it anyway. So I'm gonna do it in the order from 6 to 1. So my least favorite to my favorite. Okay. So let me just preempt this with, some of these books have been read like in the beginning of April or so. So I'm not amazing at summarizing what happens even on a good day. But this type of thing, you know, like almost 2 months later, makes it all the more difficult. So this is not going to be, you know, detailed reviews or anything like that. Yeah, and I struggled with this the most. I've never struggled with it that much. I did 3 rounds last year, and this year I found it really difficult because I had a lot of middle of the road reads. Anyway, let's get into it. In place 6, to my incredible surprise, I placed Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. I know. What? Everybody loved it. So I'm gonna say I didn't hate it. I didn't hate any of these books. Well, at least not when I finished them. But I'm not sure if this is slightly unfair towards it because there have been so many really, really good reviews to it. So I had very high expectations. It sounded like right up my street, and unfortunately it fell short of my expectations quite a bit. So Piranesi is about this guy named Piranesi. Well, he's being called Piranesi anyway, who lives in this really weird, seemingly limitless, vast house, which consists of all these massive halls that all have statues of a huge variety in them of different sizes and whatever. And in the house there are different floors, and some floors are like full of salt water, as in ocean water, and then sometimes there's floods that come in that, you know, threaten to, you know, kill Piranesi. But he's worked it all out, you know, he knows how to predict these things now, and he can like, you know, get himself to safety and all that. Apart from him, there is the other, which is another person who he meets regularly, who is doing some sort of scientific research with Piranesi's help. And the whole thing is told through diary entries, and well, don't know how much more I can tell about it without spoiling it, but let me put it this way. So I was really excited to read this. I did like the writing style. At first I was led astray thinking that it may be about something different than it actually turned out to be. And whilst I was thinking that it was going to be about this other thing, I was slightly apprehensive that it might be trite and obvious and boring. And then it turned out that it wasn't about that, but it was even less exciting than that. It was the way the story gets resolved is just disappointing to me. It's all really predictable in the end, but this sounds really weird because I was expecting something else, so clearly I wasn't predicting it, but I think it was more like, well, it can't be this, thinking in my head, it can't be this, because that would be too simple. And then unfortunately that's what it was, and in the end I felt like, really? This is, what did you do this for? I don't understand. Please tell me what I'm missing. Anyway, so that's place 6. Place 5 was Lily King's Writers and Lovers. Now, this one may just be a case of, this is just not for me. There are a few things that I liked about it. So, Writers and Lovers, what is it about? Okay, let me go back. Okay, can't remember the name of the protagonist. It is about a 30-year-old or 31-year-old, how do you say this? Well, she's a writer, but she hasn't actually published anything. So I can't think of the word. Anyway, clearly I'm not a writer. So she's been trying to write this novel for like 6 years or something, all the while she is working in some restaurant. She's waiting tables. She lives in a really shitty apartment. She is crippled by student debt. And she is reeling from the loss of her mother. And also, I think, was it a breakdown of a relationship, or was it just the fling that kind of, well, anyway, so her love life is also in tatters for one reason or another. And what I liked about it was the portrayal of grief. I thought that was really beautifully and well done. And how the protagonist unravels in these circumstances. Some observations about men were quite, funny and hit the mark. And I really liked the female friendship that was portrayed in it. And I guess, all the sort of bullshit that people have to put up with when they work in restaurants, because I've worked in bars and restaurants for a long time, up until 2 years ago or so, although I did find some of it a bit unrealistic, but maybe that's because it's in the US and a bit different. That's what I liked. I think it was generally well written. However, it's not for me. There are 2 love interests that present themselves, and generally the guys that she's into, I'm like, what? I don't understand. But anyway, so there's just too much romance plot for me, and it's not done in an interesting enough way to hold my interest. So that kind of marred the reading experience for me a bit. And then on top of it, what really kind of annoyed me, I know it sounds terrible, or maybe I'm too cynical, but everything gets tied up really neatly in a bow in a way that just doesn't seem believable at all. It wasn't for me. It was all right, but it's not my thing. So that's why it's in place 5. Place 4 was Emily St. John Mandel's The Glass Hotel. This one is, I don't even know what it's about. It's about so many things, which is one reason why it's on place 4 and not anywhere further up. I think it's trying to do too much. So I guess at the center of the story is Vincent. I'm going to say a young woman. Yeah, she's generally a young woman, but we see her as a teenager, but we also see her, at a later time, who, as a teenager, loses her mother to, I think, was it some sort of accident? I think it was a boating accident. I'm not sure anymore. Yeah, something to do with water. Anyway, an accident. And so she's never really, worked through that. But there's also her, is it a stepbrother or is it a half-brother? I can't remember. I think it's a half-brother. Not sure. who is an addict and also a musician, like artist, composer sort of guy. Then there is a Ponzi scheme, and there's this sort of world of, you know, the rich and famous, well, not famous, but anyway, the filthy rich and the Ponzi scheme and that sort of thing. Then there is life in a prison, you know. And on top of it, there's also ghosts. And that's where I kind of lost it. So the ghosts, at first I was okay with it. I was like, okay, I'm going to go along with this. However, it's because I thought the ghosts were representing somebody's regrets and sort of, you know, the regrets haunting them. You know, I thought it was a metaphor, or, you know, maybe it's one person's sort of descent into, you know, unraveling in terms of psychological unraveling whilst in prison. But it turns out that's not the case. All of a sudden, at some point, we get ghosts here, there, and everywhere. And then, that was not for me. It is, however, very beautifully written. Took me a moment to get into it, but then, you know, that was cool. But it was just too many strands. And I don't mind complicated stories where there's loads of different characters and different storylines. I just didn't think it worked in this case. And I felt myself caring less and less for each and every single character. So, place 4. Place 3. What did I do for place 3? Oh yeah, that's Real Life by Brandon Taylor. So this is interesting because for the longest time I thought this might actually end up in like the last place, or maybe place 5. It's the last one I finished, mainly to do with the fact that it was a real chore to read in the beginning. Not just the beginning, actually almost the first half. I felt like if it wasn't for the BookTube prize, I may have DNF'd it after 100 pages or so. However, I got much more into it roughly around the halfway mark, and I started to appreciate certain things that Brandon Taylor was doing. I definitely don't love it, but, you know, it did quite a lot of good things, I guess. Anyway, so what's Real Life about? It follows Wallace, who is a Black gay man who is studying in a postgraduate PhD program for biochemistry. It's very particular, and there's a lot of lab scenes, and he studies nematodes, these tiny little worms. Anyway, so it follows him over the course of a weekend, and he has this group of friends who are also all graduate students. Is that what you call it? Is it graduate student, PhD students? Who knows? All the other friends are white. Some of them are in couples. I'm saying all of them are PhD students. Not all of them. There's like 2 who aren't, but everyone else is. And they're just, you know, they're hanging out. It's like late summer. They're going to the beach, and then they have dinner, and then they go to brunch and all that sort of thing. Sounds like nothing happens, and, you know, in that sense, nothing happens. However, there's a lot that happens on the, you know, smaller level. So Wallace has a lot of trauma from his childhood that he hasn't really come to grips with. And he has basically tried to sort of cut all of that off when he went to go to university. He tries not to like think about it. He tries not to reveal anything about himself to his friends. He is trying to sort of always be at this remove, to like be another person who isn't, you know, who doesn't have anything to do with what happened in his past. But he also feels this remove to his friends. Well, because they're white. No, it's not just that. But so a lot of this deals with, you know, also his experiences of racism and the microaggressions that he's subject to, also by his friends who don't really realize how harmful that is to him, and especially the way how when one of them says something, nobody else comes to his defense. Um, and on top of that, we have this relation, or, well, I don't know, is it a relationship? We don't know, but he starts something with a guy who thinks he's straight or presents as straight. So he's never had any experiences with another man, but now he wants to, like, I guess he feels attracted to Wallace and he wants to experiment in that regard, and he's absolutely not come to terms with that attraction at all, and sort of lashes out in really harmful, violent ways. And it's I don't know, it was difficult to read. Let me put it this way. And I don't really know why I ended up liking it much more in the last half than because in the beginning, basically, I didn't like any of the characters, including Wallace. And to be honest, I don't think he's terribly likable even when I finished it. But somehow, when it went on, I kind of started appreciating this sort of incredible focus on the tiny little things that happen within this sort of microcosm that is these few friends and this weekend. I'm not doing a good job, but yeah, that's what it is. Sorry. Okay, so that was place 3. Then in place 2, we have Emma Donohue's The Pull of the Stars. This one, for a moment there, I thought might actually go into place 1, but it was really difficult. Like, I had real difficulty choosing between 1 and 2, and also between 5 and 6. But actually, yeah, between all of them. Like 4 and 3 was also really difficult. Anyway, Emma Donohue's The Pull of the Stars is set in Dublin in 1918 during the Spanish flu, and we follow a nurse. I'm really not good at remembering names. Don't know her name. Following a nurse, she is on the maternity ward in a terribly understaffed hospital. She's not actually on the regular maternity ward, but a makeshift tiny little room where pregnant women who have contracted the flu are being sort of, isolated, so they're not on the regular ward. And we see her get into this, and for some reason this time she's actually the sort of head nurse. There's nobody else to help her for the moment, and she is trying to do her best to give these women the care that they need, and obviously struggles a lot because she doesn't have a lot of leeway or power to actually make any decisions without a doctor. But it's really difficult to actually get a doctor to come around because they're all, like I said, understaffed, and she doesn't even have a runner. She does end up getting a runner who is completely inexperienced. It's just a volunteer, basically from the street. Not from the street, but you know what I mean, a walk-in volunteer. And this is really, really well written. It's incredibly evocative. It's very, very heartbreaking because, over the course of these, I can't remember, is it 2 days or something, some of these women lose their lives to the flu. Some of the babies don't make it. Obviously, there's also some births that do happen, and, so there's this sort of turmoil of emotions, let's put it that way. And let me tell you, as a person who has not given birth, the descriptions in this book made me really so reconsider. So yeah, very well written. The reason why it's on place 2 and not place, then there's the other themes that are in there are misogyny, the sort of almost stranglehold that the Catholic Church has on society in Ireland at the time, then a small part, well, is it a small part? Well, yeah, anyway, there's a part about, I guess, what do you call that? PTSD, shell shock, and also the Easter Rising. So quite a lot, but it's kind of well done in my opinion. It's very nuanced, and yeah, I think it's well done. It doesn't feel, as opposed to Glass Hotel, it doesn't feel like it's trying too much. And the only reason why I've decided not to give it the #1 spot is because I wasn't quite convinced by the ending. Not going to go into why, because I feel like that might be a spoiler. Okay. And then the last one's Douglas Stewart's Shogi Bane, last year's Booker Prize winner. I feel like I don't need to talk about it too much. I know a lot of people have said it's too conventional to win the Booker, whatever. I don't care. And also, this is not the Booker, this is the BookTube Prize. I think it's a really, really well-written book. I'm not saying it's without its flaws, but it was really beautiful. I came to care a lot for these characters, flaws and warts and all, you know. And I thought it was just really well executed. Yeah. And to me, it came down, between those two, it really came down to the sort of ending and whether I found it one more believable and more satisfying or whatever than the other. And I just thought Shogi Bane did it that much better. You know what I mean? Yeah, should I talk about what it's about? We follow Shogi Bane, who is a young boy growing up in Glasgow in Thatcher era Britain. His mother is a raging alcoholic, and there is an incredible amount of trauma. There is, psychological, emotional, and also physical abuse. There is Shogi Bane trying to come to terms with being queer, but not really having the vocabulary for that. There is, well, obviously alcoholism and this sort of unhealthy codependent relationship between Agnes, his mother, and him, where he's trying to take care of her, whilst she's being incredibly irresponsible as a mother, and all the kinds of effects that has on him and also his siblings and so on. Maybe I should have said that before I told you my ranking. Anyway, this or my reasons for it. But anyway, I think that's enough because it's been all over BookTube. So that's my ranking. Overall, I really enjoyed the experience, but somehow not as much as last year. So I've decided to sit out the next round because I've always been a mood reader, but recently I've been even more moody, and I didn't want to have another 6 books dictated to me to read for the next 2 months. I feel like I might try and do the last round though. Yeah, but I did enjoy it in terms of, at least there was one book that I really enjoyed that I would absolutely not have read were it not for the prize, and that was The Pull of the Stars. But I do think I might actually try Emily St. John Mandel again, hoping that maybe she doesn't, I don't know, I'm going to see, maybe she's written a book that doesn't try quite as much as that one. because I really like the writing. So yeah, I think that's it. I would love to hear from anybody else if you've read this group or any of these books, especially if you can talk to me about Piranesi and real life, because I'm so torn about real life and also really, really shocked that I didn't like Piranesi. Please tell me if you really love them. Tell me what I'm missing. Yeah, thanks very much. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.